What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with my Week 15 NCAA football power rankings. After a crazy week of games in rivalry week, we're gonna just dive right into it here and dropping from the rankings. You have K-State and Texas A&M, obviously losing this week, so they are falling out. Then they're also in the others receiving votes with teams like Louisville, Colorado State, and Illinois. And Illinois, they have a case to be ranked, but I just think that their resume isn't as good as some of these other teams that I kept in here, like Tulane. I think Tulane is a better team than people think. They played some tough games, suffer those first two losses, lose their first conference game. They get Army this week in the American Championship. Army obviously 10-1, only lost to Notre Dame, then played Navy the week after. And then Syracuse joins the rankings here after upsetting Miami. Obviously, Kyle McCord and Cam Ward had a great game. And Syracuse is a team that played well at the end of the year. And this is what we saw. It's a tough place to play in the Carrier Dome. Miami went into a tough environment and lost that game. Memphis, like I said, against the Tulane, got the win there, so they're ahead of them at 10-2. Then BYU beat Houston. They got to 10-2, but just missed out on the Big 12 championship game, as more than likely their season is not going to be playing for a playoff game. And then 16 through 20. I think the only team that really has a chance here, well, there's two, I guess, is Clemson and UNLV. Clemson, tough loss to South Carolina, but they still have a chance in the ACC championship game because of that Miami loss. And they get SMU this week, which is a very good team that I think isn't getting enough credit for what they've done this year. Same with UNLV. This team, 4 or 5 games through the season, their whole quarterback walked out, wasn't getting paid enough, so this team just all of a sudden lost their starting quarterback, and then they step in, they finish 10-2 with a chance to get to the playoff. Pretty crazy sequence for UNLV this year, and I think they're another team that could be flying under the radar. They upset Boise State, and they're in. Colorado blowout against Oklahoma State as they finished 9-3. Travis Hunter more than likely going to win Heisman. Missouri finished 9-3 as well. Kind of mediocre 9-3. Didn't really do too much. Their schedule in the SEC when they played a good team, they lost. Kind of same thing for Ole Miss. They scraped by Mississippi State, but I think Ole Miss out of these teams that isn't in the conference championship game has the best chance to possibly squeak in. And that's goes the same thing with Alabama and South Carolina and Miami. I think all those teams, it's just a big coin flip. I think Miami's going to get an advantage. Iowa State plays in the Big 12 championship, obviously, this week against Arizona State. So whoever wins, that's in. And I think whoever loses still has a good chance to get in as well. So I think that 12th spot's really between South Carolina, Alabama, Ole Miss when it's all said and done. I'm going to give my flowers to Arizona State and Iowa State. Both those teams responded well in the second half of the season, especially Iowa State. Lost two straight. This team looked like it was a collapse, but they won their last two to get to this place. South Carolina playing some really good football right now. And it's a shame that they finished 9-3 and they finished 10-2. They're probably in the playoff. 6 through 10. Ohio State obviously is the big one here, losing to Michigan at home for the fourth year in a row. They missed the Big Ten championship game, and I know all the Ohio State fans can cope by saying, "Oh, well, we don't have to play in the Big Ten championship game." Blah blah blah. You still lost, and if it didn't mean anything, then so be it. But I mean, you're making the playoff this year, so that's a good thing. But losing to a team that didn't make the playoff, I guess that's your argument. What are you going to say then? Georgia, 8 overtimes, probably one of the games of the year, 44-42 in a great game. Hopefully you got to stay up and watch that whole thing. Then they face Texas this week in the SEC championship. 10-2, 11-1, going to be a great game. Tennessee is just like Ohio State, and same for Indiana. Both these teams aren't going to be playing in the conference championship, but they're either going to be hosting a playoff game or facing one another. Uh, I think all those teams deserve to be in. And then Boise State, I think they're going to be the interesting team. Let's say they lose. Are they going to be the one that gets that last spot in, or are they going to reward it to another 10-2 or a 9-3 team? I think if they lose, that's something you're going to want to look out for. And it's going to be a good game against UNLV, like I mentioned earlier. 1 through 5 might come as a shock to you. I'm putting SMU up this high just because, well, I'm a huge fan of SMU and what they've done this year. 8-0 their first time in the ACC. Yeah, I know it's a weaker conference this year, but still undefeated. You played good football. Only losses to BYU when they were rolling this year, and SMU, it's not like they're scraping by these opponents and barely winning to get to 11-1. I mean, they're being very dominant, kind of like Indiana was last week, 66 nothing. And that's why I have them this high. I think they will beat Clemson. I'll give you that preview of the picks this week, SMU, and SMU is going to get a bye. I think they really are, and this team, sky is the limit for them. I would not be shocked if they make it to the Final Four as well. And I think Oregon, I think they beat Penn State. Penn State doesn't show up in big games, can't win them. You know, enough said there. Oregon's going to be your number one seed. Penn State, interesting to see where they would fall if they do lose. Texas, going to be a great game, like I said, for Georgia. I really don't know who's going to win that one. That's a coin flip. Just depends what Georgia team, and I guess at this point, what Texas team you're going to get. The Notre Dame, obviously not being in a conference, they make the playoff, probably going to be the 5 seed at this point, regardless. Going to be hosting a playoff game in South Bend. Great atmosphere, getting the 12 seed, and whoever that may be, I'm sure that place is going to be rocking. But that's going to be it for my Week 15 power rankings. Check back next week to see who will get into the playoff and where they will fall in my power rankings. But until the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.